When my son got married, cold, wealthy CEO MOM kept the $95 million secret, just to see who'd treat me with respect. After her husband died 5 years ago, the loneliness had nearly killed her. She threw herself into work, built walls higher than her stock prices, and watched her relationship with Nolan crumble into polite holiday phone calls and awkward birthday dinners. Have you ever walked into a room and felt immediately judged? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The woman counting crumpled bills at Gate B7 in Seattle-Tacoma Airport owned more money than everyone on that plane combined. Clara Whitmore smoothed her thrift store cardigan and checked her phone. One text from her son about his wedding tomorrow, zero acknowledgement that she'd just liquidated $95 million in tech stocks. She wasn't flying coach to Charleston because she was broke. She was conducting the most expensive social experiment of her life. What would you do if you had unlimited money, but everyone treated you like you were invisible? Have you ever felt judged by your appearance? Ever wondered who would love you if you had nothing to offer? Clara was about to discover which of her son's new family members had genuine hearts, and which ones were frauds. The results would shatter everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and family. Flight 1247 to Charleston, now boarding group C, the gate agent announced. Clara picked up her worn duffel bag and joined the line behind college students and families heading south. Nobody looked twice at the gray-haired woman in discount shoes. Perfect. 3 weeks ago, she'd sat in her 42nd floor office overlooking Elliott Bay, signing papers that transferred her tech empire to new owners. Her assistant had stared in shock. "Mrs. Whitmore, you're walking away from everything you built." "No," Clara had replied, sliding the contract across mahogany that cost more than most people's cars. "I'm walking towards something I never had time to build." Now, wedged between a crying baby and a man whose cologne could choke a horse, Clara felt something she hadn't experienced in decades: anonymity. For 30 years, people had smiled at her bank account, laughed at her connections, loved her quarterly profits. Tomorrow, she discovered who might actually love her. Her phone buzzed with another text from Nolan. "Mom, Keisha's family is so excited to meet you. They prepared the guest room and everything." Clara almost laughed. The guest room. She owned properties in 6 states, but tomorrow night she'd sleep in someone's spare bedroom on sheets they'd probably bought specially for her visit. The irony tasted bitter and sweet at the same time. She'd researched Keisha Davis through private investigators, social media, and employment records. 29 years old, social worker in Atlanta, came from a middle-class family that valued education and community service. Clean background, no red flags, genuinely seemed to adore Nolan. But Clara had learned the hard way that people could fake anything when money was involved. Her late husband used to say, "Money doesn't change people, Clara. It just reveals who they really are." Tomorrow, she'd test that theory on the woman her son wanted to spend his life with. The plane lifted off, carrying her away from her penthouse, her power suits, her reputation as one of the Pacific Northwest's most ruthless businesswomen. Below, Seattle shrunk to toy-sized buildings and threads of highway. Clara pressed her face to the small window and smiled. She remembered her own wedding day 32 years ago. Young, broke, madly in love with a programmer who made her laugh until her sides ached. They'd honeymooned in a borrowed cabin and eaten peanut butter sandwiches for dinner because that's all they could afford. Those were the happiest 2 weeks of her life. Then success happened. Money flowed in faster than they could count it. Friends multiplied overnight. Invitations arrived daily. Everyone wanted to touch their golden lives. And slowly, Clara forgot how to tell the difference between people who loved her and people who loved her lifestyle. After her husband died 5 years ago, the loneliness had nearly killed her. She threw herself into work, built walls higher than her stock prices, and watched her relationship with Nolan crumble into polite holiday phone calls and awkward birthday dinners. But tomorrow was different. Tomorrow, she'd sit in the back row of a Charleston church wearing a borrowed dress, watching her son marry a woman who had no idea that the poor white mom from out west could buy the entire wedding venue with pocket change. If you've ever felt invisible in a crowd of people who should know you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments below. Charleston's humid air hit her like a warm embrace she hadn't felt in decades as she wheeled her single suitcase through baggage claim. Watching families reunite with hugs and flowers while she stood alone, unrecognized, exactly as planned. As she climbed into the budget motel shuttle, Clara's phone buzzed with a photo from Keisha. "Can't wait to meet the woman who raised my perfect man." The irony made her smile. By tomorrow night, she'd know if those words were genuine or just pretty lies. The bride's family took one look at Clara's discount dress and decided they already knew everything about her. They had never been more wrong about anyone in their lives. The rehearsal dinner venue dripped Southern elegance. Crystal chandeliers casting rainbow prisms across white tablecloths, while magnolia scents drifted through French doors opening onto manicured gardens. Clara smoothed her JCPenney blouse and stepped inside, immediately feeling the weight of appraising eyes. "You must be Nolan's mother." A woman with perfectly styled silver hair approached, arms extended but stopping just short of an actual hug. "I'm Patricia Davis, Keisha's mother. We're so glad you could make it." The words were warm. The tone was funeral polite. "Thank you for having me," Clara replied, watching Patricia's gaze flick over her thrift store outfit like a price scanner. "Your daughter seems wonderful." "Oh, she is." Keisha has always been drawn to charitable causes. Patricia's smile never wavered, but Clara caught the coded language. Charitable causes, like marrying the son of a woman who clearly couldn't afford proper wedding attire. Have you ever walked into a room and felt immediately judged? When was the last time someone surprised you by seeing past appearances? Clara accepted a glass of sweet tea from a server and found a corner where she could observe. Keisha moved through the crowd like sunlight, hugging elderly relatives, laughing with bridesmaids, checking on every detail with the kind of genuine care that couldn't be faked. When she spotted Clara, her entire face lit up. "Mrs. Whitmore." Keisha practically bounced over, her joy so authentic it made Clara's chest tight. "I'm so happy you're here. Nolan talks about you constantly." "Mostly good things, I hope," Clara said, surprised by how easily Keisha's warmth affected her. "The best things. He says you taught him that success means nothing if you forget where you came from." Keisha's eyes sparkled. "I can't wait to hear your stories." Behind Keisha, a bridesmaid whispered to another, "Poor thing probably spent her last dollar on that plane ticket." The comment was meant to be quiet. It wasn't quiet enough. Clara felt her jaw tighten, but before she could respond, Keisha turned around with the kind of look that could freeze hell over. "Excuse me, Ashley? Did you have something to share with the group?" Keisha's voice stayed sweet, but steel ran underneath. "Because Mrs. Whitmore just flew across the country to celebrate with us, and I thought we agreed everyone was welcome here." Ashley's face went red. "I didn't mean—" "Good," Keisha said firmly. "Because my future mother-in-law deserves the same respect we'd give anyone else's family." Clara stared at this young woman who'd just defended her against her own bridesmaid. When was the last time someone had stood up for her? When was the last time someone had fought for her dignity instead of her donations? The evening continued with Clara watching, cataloging, measuring. Some family members included her in conversation. Others offered polite smiles and kept their distance. But Keisha treated her like she mattered. "Tell me about Seattle," Keisha said later, settling beside Clara on the porch swing. "Nolan says it's beautiful, but I want to hear it from someone who calls it home. Tell me in the comments, do you judge people by their clothes? Be honest." When Keisha's mother whispered, "That poor woman probably spent her last dollar flying here," Clara almost broke character. Almost. But the real test was still coming. While others offered polite smiles and kept their distance, one person pulled up a chair and asked Clara about her life like it actually mattered. Spanish moss swayed in the evening breeze as Clara and Keisha sat on the plantation porch, sweet tea glasses sweating in the South Carolina heat, while conversation flowed easier than it had with anyone in years. "So what do you do for work?" Keisha asked, tucking her legs under her wedding dress like a kid at a sleepover. Clara had prepared for this question. "I work in technology. Nothing glamorous." "True enough." Owning a tech company was technically working in technology. That's so cool. I barely know how to update my phone. Keisha laughed. What's your favorite part? Problem solving, Clara answered honestly. Finding solutions that help people. Yes, Keisha's face lit up. That's exactly what I love about social work. Everyone thinks it's depressing, but really it's about possibilities. Taking someone's worst day and helping them find a way forward. Clara found herself leaning in. When was the last time someone had asked about her work without immediately calculating what they could gain from her answer? Tell me about Nolan as a little boy, Keisha said softly. What was he like? The question hit Clara unexpectedly deep. Curious about everything. He used to take apart our electronics to see how they worked. Drove his father crazy. He still does that. Last week he took apart our coffee maker just because it made a weird noise. Keisha grinned. Did he put things back together? Almost never. Clara surprised herself by laughing. We went through 3 toasters one summer. Money doesn't make memories, Keisha said softly. Tell me about the good times with Nolan when he was little. The simple statement gutted Clara. Here was a young woman who understood something Clara had forgotten, that the most valuable moments couldn't be bought. We used to have pancake Sundays, Clara found herself saying. Every Sunday morning, just the 3 of us. Nolan would help flip them, getting batter everywhere. His father would read the comics aloud in different voices. That sounds perfect. It was. Clara's throat tightened. Before everything got so complicated, Keisha reached over and squeezed her hand. The best parts of people don't change, Mrs. Whitmore. They just get buried sometimes under life's noise. From inside, laughter spilled out where other family members networked and posed for photos. But out here, Clara felt something she'd almost forgotten. The simple pleasure of being known, not just recognized. Can I tell you something? Keisha's voice dropped to a whisper. I was terrified to meet you. Why? Because Nolan loves you so much, and I was scared you'd think I wasn't good enough for him. Clara stared at this beautiful, accomplished young woman who was worried about measuring up to a mother who'd failed her son in so many ways. Keisha, Clara said carefully, any mother would be lucky to have you as a daughter-in-law. Keisha's smile could have powered the whole plantation. Thank you. That means everything. When was the last time someone made you feel heard? Really heard? Share the person's name below. As laughter spilled from inside, where others networked and posed for photos, Clara realized something terrifying. She was starting to care what this young woman thought of her. And that changed everything. The document Clara's lawyers slipped into the wedding papers would either protect her son's future or destroy the first genuine relationship she'd witnessed in decades. The bridal suite buzzed with excitement. Silk and lace scattered across antique furniture, while bridesmaids applied makeup with the precision of artists preparing a masterpiece. Clara stood in the doorway, watching Keisha transform from nervous bride to glowing princess. Mrs. Whitmore, come in, Keisha called out, catching her reflection in the mirror. I need someone to tell me honestly. Does this dress make me look like I'm playing dress up? Clara stepped inside, studying Keisha in the flowing white gown that fit like it was designed specifically for her body. You look like you were born to wear that dress. Really? Keisha's hands shook as she adjusted the veil. I keep thinking everyone's going to realize I don't belong in something this expensive. The comment hit Clara like a physical blow. This woman, beautiful, educated, kind, thought she didn't deserve nice things. Meanwhile, Clara's phone held the power to destroy her with a single document. 3 hours earlier, her lawyer had called. The prenup is ready, Mrs. Whitmore. Standard protection clauses. If the marriage fails, she gets nothing from your son's inheritance. I never asked for a prenup, Clara had said. Your estate planning required it. We can't protect assets without protecting them from all potential threats, including divorce. Threats. They called Keisha a threat. Now, watching Keisha worry about deserving a dress while Clara's legal team prepared to treat her like a gold digger, guilt twisted in Clara's stomach like poison. You know what I love about you? Clara said suddenly. Keisha turned, eyes wide in the mirror. What? You defend people. Last night with your bridesmaid. You didn't have to do that. Of course I did. Keisha's voice turned fierce. Nobody gets to disrespect family. Not in front of me. Family. Clara's chest tightened. When was the last time someone had claimed her as family? When was the last time someone had fought for her dignity simply because it was right? Her phone buzzed. A text from her lawyer. Prenup delivered to wedding coordinator. Will be presented during document signing. Clara stared at the message while around her, bridesmaids chattered about flowers and photography. Keisha hummed softly, pinning baby's breath into her hair, completely unaware that in 2 hours she'd discover her new family had been testing her worthiness all along. Mrs. Whitmore, Keisha was looking at her with concern. Are you okay? You look pale. Just wedding nerves? Clara lied. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone and trusting them? What would you do? Keisha laughed. I know, right? All this fuss for one day. But Nolan's worth it. Her expression softened. He's worth everything. Clara watched this woman who defended her, included her, treated her with more genuine kindness than most people showed when they knew her net worth. Keisha wasn't performing goodness. She was simply good. Clara stared at her phone, her lawyer's number highlighted. One call could stop the prenup from being revealed. But as she watched Keisha adjust her veil with shaking hands, nervous about marrying into a family she was trying so hard to impress, Clara made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. Every bride deserves to feel like a queen on her wedding day. Clara just didn't expect to discover she was crowning someone who already treated her like royalty. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting the chapel in jeweled colors while white roses and baby's breath created an altar that looked carved from dreams. Clara smoothed her thrift store dress and took her seat in the back row, just another face in the crowd. Mom. An usher appeared beside her. Mrs. Davis asked me to escort you to the family section. That's not necessary. She insisted. Said Nolan's mother belongs in the front row. Clara's throat tightened as the young man guided her to the second pew, right behind Keisha's parents. Patricia Davis turned and offered a strained smile. How lovely that you could make it, Clara. The words were honey. The tone was vinegar. But then Keisha appeared in the doorway, and everything else faded. She moved down the aisle like grace itself, her face glowing with joy so pure it made Clara's eyes water. This was how a woman should look on her wedding day, not calculated or performed, but genuinely radiant with love. Nolan's face when he saw his bride almost broke Clara's heart. Her son, her serious, careful son, looked like he was witnessing a miracle. Maybe he was. Dearly beloved, the minister began, we gather today to witness the union of 2 hearts. Clara watched her son take Keisha's hands, watched them exchange vows they'd written themselves, watched them promise to build a life based on love, trust, and mutual respect. Everything Clara's marriage had been before money complicated it. What's more important, protecting your family or trusting your instincts about people? Let me know below. You may kiss the bride. The congregation erupted in celebration as Nolan and Keisha sealed their marriage with a kiss that looked like the beginning of everything beautiful. Clara applauded with everyone else, tears streaming down her face for reasons she couldn't fully name. But as rice and rose petals filled the air, Clara's phone vibrated against her ribs. The text was simple and devastating. Prenup revealed. Keisha knows. She's asking for you. The reception hall transformation shocked Clara into stillness. What had been elegant that morning now felt like a museum, beautiful but cold, expensive but empty. And in the center of it all stood Keisha, still in her wedding dress, holding a piece of paper that would change everything. Clara pushed through the crowd, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd spent months planning this experiment, weeks preparing for every possible outcome. But she hadn't prepared for the look on Keisha's face. Hurt so deep it made Clara's elaborate test feel cruel and small. Keisha, Clara started, but her daughter-in-law held up one hand. Did you know about this? Keisha's voice stayed steady, but her hands shook. Did you know they were going to test me like this? The wedding guest had gone quiet, sensing drama, but not understanding its source. Nolan stood frozen beside his bride, looking between the 2 women he loved most, clearly lost. Clara looked at the prenup in Keisha's hands, at the hurt in her eyes, at the beginning of what could be the end of everything. The experiment was over, but the real test was just beginning. "There's something you need to know," Clara said quietly, "about who I really am." The bride's tears weren't from joy anymore. They were from the betrayal of discovering her new family had been testing her worthiness all along. Keisha stood in the bridal suite, wedding dress now feeling like a costume she'd been tricked into wearing. Her hands shook as she held the prenup documents, each page proof that while she'd been opening her heart, others had been protecting their wallets. "You tested me?" Her voice cracked like thin ice. "I shared my grandmother's stories with you. I worried about whether you had enough to eat, and you were conducting some sick experiment." Clara felt smaller than she had in decades, despite her billions. The mahogany furniture in the suite suddenly felt like courtroom furniture, and she was definitely the defendant. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was secretly judging you? Drop a comment below about how that felt. ***. Keisha, please let me explain. Explain what? That every conversation we had was fake? That when I saved you the last piece of wedding cake, you were taking notes on my character? Keisha's voice rose, and bridesmaids scattered like startled birds. The wedding coordinator peeked in, then quickly closed the door. Outside, the reception continued, guests dancing while the bride's world collapsed. Nolan burst through the door, still in his tuxedo, looking between the two most important women in his life. "What's happening? Mom, why is my wife crying?" "Your mother," Keisha said, emphasizing each word like a blade, "has been playing games with us." Poor little Clara from Washington, the woman struggling to afford her son's wedding. She's worth more money than this entire venue. The color drained from Nolan's face. "Mom, what is she talking about?" Clara straightened her shoulders, the businesswoman finally emerging from behind the thrift store costume. "I own Whitmore Tech Solutions. I sold my shares last week for $95 million. The silence that followed could have powered the whole hotel. Nolan sank into a chair like his legs had given out. "You've been lying to me my entire life?" "Not lying. Protecting. Do you know how many people have used me for money? How many relationships I've lost because someone found out about my wealth? So you decided to test your own family?" Keisha's laugh was bitter. "Congratulations, Clara. You passed your little experiment. I treated you with kindness when I thought you were broke. Are you happy now? What would you do if someone you loved tested your character without telling you? Team trust or team test? Let me know below. ***. The raw pain in Keisha's eyes cut deeper than any business betrayal Clara had ever experienced. This wasn't about money or contracts or corporate games. This was about a young woman who'd offered genuine love and received calculated deception in return. "I was wrong," Clara whispered, "but I had to know if you were real." "Real?" Keisha's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I invited you into my family. I asked about your dreams. I worried about you traveling alone. And you think that was performance?" She started pulling pins from her hair, letting her wedding hairstyle fall apart piece by piece. "I defended you to my aunts when they whispered about your clothes. I made sure you had the best seat at dinner. I stayed up last night, worrying you might feel out of place at our reception." Each word hit Clara like a physical blow. "And while I was loving you like a mother," Keisha continued, "you were grading me like a test." Clara reached into her purse with trembling fingers. She pulled out a single sheet of paper, her original will, written 3 days before the wedding. "You want to know who I really am?" Her voice steadied despite her racing heart. "This document leaves everything to charity. Everything. Because I believe people only love money, not me." She held up the paper so Keisha could see the legal letterhead. "But after spending 2 days with you, I was going to change it. I was going to make you and Nolan my heirs. Not because you pass some test, but because you show me what real family looks like." The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, marking seconds that felt like hours. Keisha stared at the will, then at Clara, then at her husband who looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "You were going to leave us everything?" she asked quietly. "I was going to leave you everything because you loved me when you thought I had nothing." Hit that like button if you think Clara should get a second chance. Or leave a fire emoji if you think Keisha should walk away. Asterisk asterisk. But before anyone could respond, Clara did something no one expected. She tore the will in half. When Clara Whitmore finally told the truth about her bank account, the guests in the reception hall could have powered half of Charleston. Ladies and gentlemen, Clara's voice carried across the ballroom as conversations died mid-sentence. I have an announcement. Keisha stood frozen at the edge of the dance floor, still in her wedding gown, but looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Nolan hovered beside her, protective and confused. Have you ever had a moment where your entire life changed with one sentence? Tell me about it in the comments below. Asterisk asterisk. Clara climbed onto the small stage where the band had been playing, her budget dress looking completely out of place under the crystal chandeliers. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The poorest-looking person in the room was about to reveal she was the richest. For those who don't know me, I'm Clara Whitmore, Nolan's mother, and I owe everyone here an apology, especially my new daughter-in-law. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like waves. Wedding guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing drama but not understanding its scope yet. 3 days ago, I flew here from Seattle pretending to be something I'm not. I wore borrowed clothes, stayed in a cheap motel, and let everyone believe I was struggling financially. Keisha's mother grabbed her husband's arm. Other family members exchanged glances that screamed, "I told you something was off." The truth is, I'm the CEO and majority shareholder of Whitmore Tech Solutions. Last week, I sold that company for $95 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the gasps, the whispers, the sounds of people frantically recalculating every interaction they'd had with the poor woman from Washington. Clara's eyes found Keisha in the crowd. I conducted a cruel experiment. I wanted to see who would treat me with kindness when they thought I had nothing to offer. Would you treat someone differently if you knew they had millions? Be honest in the comments. I want to know who keeps it real. Asterisk asterisk. Some of you barely acknowledged me. Clara continued, her voice gaining strength. One person made comments about my thrift store energy. Others offered polite smiles but kept their distance. She paused, letting that sink in. Several guests suddenly found their shoes fascinating. But one person, Keisha, treated me like family from the moment we met. She saved me seats, included me in conversations, asked about my life like it mattered. She worried about me traveling alone and made sure I felt welcome at every event. Keisha's eyes filled with tears, but whether from anger or something else, nobody could tell. When I thought about changing my will to include my son and his wife, it wasn't because they passed some test. It was because Keisha showed me what unconditional love looks like. Clara reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. With shaking fingers, she opened her banking app and projected it onto the screen behind her. The balance showed $97,247,382. The crowd's collective intake of breath was audible. But money without trust is worthless, Clara said. And I destroyed trust with the person whose opinion matters most. She looked directly at Keisha. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want everyone in this room to know that your kindness wasn't wasted on someone who couldn't appreciate it. It was given to someone who needed it more than she realized. The emotional weight in the room was thick enough to cut. Some people looked ashamed of their earlier treatment of Clara. Others seemed angry about being deceived. But all eyes were on Keisha. What would you do if someone apologized for lying, but admitted they learned something important about you? Drop your thoughts below. Asterisk asterisk. Keisha walked slowly to the stage, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a white river. When she reached Clara, she didn't speak immediately. Instead, she studied the older woman's face, searching for something. "You have $97 million, Keisha said finally, her voice carrying across the silent room. "And you let me pay for your coffee yesterday morning." Clara's face crumpled. "Yes. You watched me worry about whether you had enough money for cab fare home." "Yes." Keisha was quiet for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, she started laughing. Not bitter laughter, but genuine amusement. "You know what the crazy part is?" she said, addressing the crowd. "I still would have paid for her coffee. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in second chances. This story is just getting started. Asterisk asterisk. Money changes everything, except for the one person whose opinion mattered most. The aftermath of Clara's revelation played out like a soap opera in the hotel corridors. Some family members suddenly remembered urgent conversations they needed to have with the wealthy Mrs. Whitmore. Others avoided eye contact entirely, embarrassed by their earlier dismissive behavior. But Keisha? She disappeared. Have you ever needed space to process a betrayal? Tell me how you handled it in the comments below. Asterisk asterisk. Nolan found her on the hotel's rooftop garden. Wedding dress spread around her like spilled moonlight. Charleston's skyline glittered in the distance, but she was staring at her hands. "You okay?" he asked, though the question felt ridiculous given the circumstances. "Your mother has more money than some small countries," Keisha said without looking up, "and she pretended to be broke so she could judge my character." Nolan sat beside her carefully, mindful of her dress. "I had no idea about the money. None. That's not the part that hurts." Her voice was quiet. "The money doesn't bother me. It's that she thought she needed to test me. Like my kindness was suspicious unless proven genuine." Down in the ballroom, Clara paced like a caged animal, still in her thrift store outfit while wedding guests whispered and pointed. Some approach her now with sudden interest in conversation, their earlier indifference forgotten. Mrs. Whitmore gushed a cousin who'd barely nodded at her before. "We should definitely stay in touch." Clara's business instincts kicked in immediately. She could read people like financial reports, and right now everyone was calculating their potential return on investment for being nice to her. Everyone except Keisha. What's worse, being ignored when you're poor or being loved only when you're rich? Let me know below. Asterisk asterisk. "I need to find my daughter-in-law," Clara announced, cutting through the suddenly attentive crowd. She found Keisha and Nolan on the rooftop. Their conversation paused as she approached. The night air carried the scent of magnolias and the distant sound of celebration from other hotel events. "Before you say anything," Keisha said, standing up, "I need you to understand something." Clara braced herself for anger, for accusations, for the cutting words she probably deserved. "I'm not mad that you're rich," Keisha continued. "I'm not even mad that you lied. I'm mad that you thought you needed to." The honesty in her voice hit Clara harder than any business negotiation ever had. "You spent 2 days watching me be kind to you, and your first thought was that it must be fake. That says more about the people in your life than it does about me." Clara felt tears she hadn't shed in years threatening to fall. "Everyone wants something from wealthy people. Everyone except me," Keisha said simply. "I didn't even know you had money, and I still invited you to family dinners for the next year. What was I going to get from poor Clara that I couldn't get from rich Clara?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. "Authenticity," Clara whispered. "Exactly, and that's what I'm still waiting for." Drop a heart if you think Clara can earn back Keisha's trust, or a fire emoji if some mistakes can't be fixed. Asterisk asterisk. Some gifts change your life. Others change your entire community's future. 3 days after the wedding revelation, Clara sat in her Charleston hotel suite surrounded by financial documents, her laptop open to nonprofit regulations, and a notepad filled with Keisha's dreams. Have you ever had someone believe in your dreams when you thought they were impossible? Share that story below. Asterisk asterisk. Keisha had agreed to meet, but only to discuss practical matters. No forgiveness declarations, no emotional reconciliations, just two adults trying to figure out how to be family despite the complicated start. "Tell me about the community center idea again," Clara said when Keisha arrived, looking professional in a simple dress that cost less than Clara's morning coffee used to. "It's not realistic anymore," Keisha replied, sitting across from her. "I was thinking small. Maybe an after-school program in a rented space. But that was when I thought you were." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "When you thought I was like you," Clara finished. "Someone who had to make every dollar count. Right. Now it feels weird talking about money with you. I don't want you thinking I'm suddenly interested in your wallet." Clara closed her laptop and leaned forward. "What if I told you that your community center idea could help heal something broken between us? What would you build if money was an issue? Dream big in the comments below. Asterisk, asterisk. I'd say you can't buy forgiveness. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to build something. Clara pulled out her phone and showed Keisha a property listing. This warehouse in Atlanta. 15,000 square feet. Perfect location for community outreach. Keisha's eyes widened despite herself. Clara, that building costs more money than you've ever seen, but less than I spend on business lunches. Clara's voice was matter of fact. But here's the thing. I know nothing about community work. I know how to make money, not how to help people with it. She leaned back, studying Keisha's face. You know exactly how to help people. You've been doing it your whole career, just without enough resources. You want to partner with me? Keisha asked suspiciously. I want to learn from you. There's a difference. The idea hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they wanted to cross. Would you trust someone who hurt you if they offer to fund your biggest dream? Tough choice. Tell me what you do. Asterisk, asterisk. I'd have complete control over programs and hiring. Keisha asked. Complete control. I'd handle funding and legal structure. You'd handle everything that actually matters. For the first time since the wedding revelation, Keisha smiled. Not a polite smile or a forgiving smile, but an excited smile. I could help so many families, she whispered. We could help so many families, Clara corrected. This doesn't fix what happened between us, Keisha warned. I know, but maybe it starts something new. Keisha extended her hand across the table. Partners. Clara shook it, feeling something she hadn't experienced in decades. The thrill of being wanted for her resources and her respect, not just her money. Partners. But there's something about Nolan you need to know first. Hit that subscribe button. This family story is about to get even more complicated. Every family has secrets, but some secrets have the power to either bind people together or tear them apart forever. Your son, Keisha said carefully, has been struggling with something he's never told you. Clara's business mind immediately went to worst-case scenarios. Debt, addiction, legal trouble. She'd seen it all in corporate families. During our engagement, Nolan had panic attacks about the wedding. Not about marrying me, but about you being there. Have you ever been afraid of disappointing someone you love? Tell me about it below. Asterisk, asterisk. Clara felt like she'd been slapped. He didn't want me at his wedding. He wanted you there desperately. That was the problem. Keisha chose her words carefully. He was terrified you'd see his life and find it small compared to yours. The hotel suite suddenly felt too small, too warm. Clara stood and walked to the window, looking out at Charleston's historic district without really seeing it. He doesn't know about your money, but he knows about your success. He spent his whole life feeling like he disappointed you by becoming a programmer instead of running companies. That's ridiculous, Clara said immediately. I'm proud of him. When's the last time you told him that? The question hit like a physical blow. Clara tried to remember the last conversation she'd had with Nolan about his work, his life, his dreams. Most of their calls were brief updates, logistical conversations about visits and holidays. When did you last tell someone you're proud of them? Maybe it's time to change that. Tag them below. Asterisk, asterisk. He thinks you see him as a failure, Keisha continued gently. A small-town programmer married to a social worker. Not exactly the power couple you might have imagined for your son. Clara turned from the window. You're both incredibly successful at what you do, but we're not rich, and in your world that matters. It doesn't matter to me. Then why didn't you ever tell him that? The silence that followed was heavy with years of missed conversations, unexpressed pride, and assumptions that had calcified into emotional walls. I thought, Clara said slowly, that if I stayed distant, he'd be motivated to achieve more. I thought hovering would make him dependent. Instead, you made him feel inadequate. Clara sank back into her chair. I've destroyed both my relationships, haven't I? Not destroyed, damaged. But damage can be repaired if you're willing to do the work. Keisha pulled out her phone and showed Clara a photo from their honeymoon planning. Nolan was smiling, but Clara could now see the tension around his eyes that she'd missed before. He loves you, Clara, but he's scared of you too. He's scared of never being enough. Have you ever felt like you weren't enough for someone you loved? Drop a heart if you relate. Asterisk, asterisk. What do I do? Start by talking to him. Really talking. Not about business or achievements or success. About feelings. Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Nolan. Mom, can we talk? Just us. Looks like you're about to get your chance, Keisha said softly. Hit that subscribe button. This family story is about to get even more complicated. When Nolan finally told his mother how he really felt, 30 years of silence came crashing down like a dam breaking. They met at a quiet coffee shop downtown, far from the hotel where wedding guests might still be gossiping about Clara's revelation. Nolan looked exhausted, still processing that his struggling mother was worth nearly $100 million. I need to know something, he said before Clara could even sit down. When you sold your company last week, was that always the plan? To test Keisha with fake poverty and then surprise everyone? Clara's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down. No, the testing part happened because I panicked about meeting her family. Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough for someone you loved? Tell me about it below. Asterisk, asterisk. But the money part, you've been hiding them my whole life? Not hiding, protecting. Clara studied her son's face, seeing hurt she'd never noticed before. I wanted you to succeed on your own merit, not because people knew about family wealth. Nolan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Succeed? Mom, I'm a programmer in Charleston. I make good money, but I'm not changing the world. I'm not running companies or selling them for millions. You think that matters to me? Doesn't it? His voice cracked slightly. Every phone call, you ask about work projects and career advancement. You never ask if I'm happy. The accusation hit Clara like a physical blow. She realized he was right. Their conversations always focused on achievements, never on contentment. I thought, she said carefully, that pushing you would help you reach your potential. What if my potential is being a good programmer who coaches Little League and makes his wife laugh? What if that's enough? Clara stared at her son, really looked at him for the first time in years. He had laugh lines around his eyes, strong hands from weekend woodworking, and a peace in his face she'd never achieved despite all her success. What would you choose? Massive wealth or genuine happiness? Drop your answer below. Asterisk, asterisk. When did you become so wise? She whispered. When I stopped trying to impress you and started trying to impress myself. The coffee shop hummed with afternoon conversations, but their table felt isolated in its honesty. I have panic attacks, Mom. Nolan's voice was barely audible. Started in college when you'd call asking about grades and internships. Got worse when I chose programming over business school. Clara felt her heart breaking in real time. You never told me. How could I? You built an empire from nothing. You're this incredible success story. And I'm just normal. Just normal. Clara's voice rose, causing other customers to glance over. You created software that helps hospitals manage patient care better. You volunteer teaching kids coding. You found a woman who loves you completely, and you love her back the same way. She leaned forward, decades of unexpressed emotion finally finding words. I built companies and made money, but I never built a life. I have business contacts, not friends. I have assets, not relationships. You have everything I spent 60 years trying to buy. Nolan blinked back tears. You think I'm successful? I think you're the most successful person I know. You're rich in all the ways that actually matter. When's the last time someone told you they were proud of you? Share that memory below. Asterisk, asterisk. I wish you'd told me that before I spent 15 years feeling like a disappointment. Clara reached across the table and took her son's hands. You have never, not for 1 second, been a disappointment. You've been an inspiration I was too proud to admit I needed. Really, really. And I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. For the first time since the wedding, Nolan smiled genuinely. So what happens now? With you and Keisha, with all this money, with everything. Clara squeezed his hands. Now we figure out how to be a real family. All three of us. Hit that like button if you believe families can heal from years of misunderstanding. Asterisk, asterisk. When Clara saw the warehouse that would become Keisha's dream, she finally understood what money was actually for. The building sat in an Atlanta neighborhood where hope struggled against poverty, its windows covered with plywood and walls tagged with graffiti. but Keisha walked through it like she was touring a palace. The main floor could be the after-school space, she explained, her voice echoing in the empty warehouse. Kids need somewhere safe to go while parents work late shifts. Clara stepped carefully around debris, her designer shoes completely wrong for the environment. But for once, she didn't care about appearances. Have you ever seen someone's passion transform how they see the world? Tell me about it below. ***. Computer lab here, Keisha continued, pointing to a corner with good natural light. GED classes upstairs. In this section, she stopped at a large open area near the loading dock. Community kitchen. Families could learn cooking skills and food budgeting together. How many people would this serve? Clara asked, pulling out her phone to take notes. Directly? Maybe 200 kids and their families. Indirectly? The whole neighborhood changes when kids have support. Clara watched Keisha transform as she described her vision. The wariness from the wedding revelation melted away, replaced by pure passion. I've seen what happens when communities don't have resources, Keisha said. Kids get into trouble because they're bored and unsupervised. Families struggle because they don't know what services exist. People feel hopeless because nobody's investing in their future. And this changes that. This proves someone believes in them. Clara stopped taking notes and really listened. In 30 years of business, she'd never heard anyone speak about work with this kind of love. What cause would you dedicate your life to if money wasn't an issue? Share your passion below. ***. The legal structure could be a non-profit, Clara said, her business mind engaging. Tax advantages, ability to accept donations, grant from foundations. You'd really fund the whole thing? Clara looked around the warehouse again, but this time she saw what Keisha saw. Children laughing in the after-school area. Teenagers learning job skills in the computer lab. Families gathering for community dinners. I'd fund the building and first-year operations. After that, we make it self-sustaining through programs that generate revenue. Revenue, adult education classes for a fee, corporate training workshops, event space rental. The community benefits, but the center also supports itself. Keisha grinned. You really are a businesswoman, and you really are going to change lives here. They spent 2 hours walking through the space, planning layouts, and discussing programs. Clara found herself asking questions she'd never considered. What did struggling families actually need? How did you measure success in community work? What made the difference between surviving and thriving? Have you ever had someone completely change how you see your purpose? Drop a heart if yes. ***. There's something else, Keisha said as they prepared to leave. I want to name it after someone. Clara braced herself, wondering if this was where forgiveness officially happened. The Clara and Nolan Community Center, Keisha continued. Because you're funding it, and your son's the one who brought us together. Not just the Clara Center. Money alone doesn't build community. It takes family working together. Clara felt tears she'd been holding back for days finally fall. You really forgive me? I'm learning to. But more than that, I'm learning from you. You show me what it looks like to admit mistakes and try to fix them. They shook hands in the empty warehouse, sealing not just a business partnership, but the beginning of genuine family. Partners? Clara asked. Family, Keisha corrected. Outside, Atlanta traffic rushed past, people hurrying to their next destination. But inside the future Clara and Nolan Community Center, 2 women had found something more valuable than money or pride. They found purpose. Subscribe if you believe in second chances and communities that lift each other up. ***. The wedding gift that changed everything wasn't wrapped in pretty paper. It was written in legal documents that would secure 3 generations. 1 week after the warehouse visit, Clara called a family meeting at Nolan and Keisha's apartment. She arrived carrying a briefcase and wearing the kind of serious expression that meant business. I have your wedding gift, she announced without preamble. Keisha and Nolan exchanged glances. After everything that had happened, they weren't sure they wanted any more surprises from Clara. Have you ever received a gift that completely changed your life? Tell me about it below. ***. Clara opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder of documents. I've been working with attorneys all week. "Mom," Nolan said cautiously, "we appreciate whatever this is, but let me finish." Clara's voice had the authority of someone used to running boardroom meetings. These documents establish 3 things. She placed a first set of papers on her coffee table. A trust fund for your future children's education. Full college tuition, graduate school if they want it, no strings attached. Keisha's eyes widened. "Clara, that's incredibly generous, but..." "Second," Clara continued, placing down more documents, "the deed to this apartment building. You'll never pay rent again, and the rental income from other units will supplement your salaries." Nolan picked up the deed with shaking hands. "You bought our entire building?" "Third, and most importantly," Clara said, pulling out the final documents, "these papers establish you both as equal partners in Whitmore Community Development. 50-50-50 ownership split." "What's Whitmore Community Development?" Keisha asked. "The company that will own and operate the Atlanta Community Center, plus future centers in other cities. You're not just getting one building, Keisha. You're getting a foundation to change communities across the country." What would you do with the power to change entire communities? Dream big in the comments. ****. The silence in the small apartment was deafening. Keisha stared at the documents like they might disappear if she blinked. "This makes us millionaires," she whispered. "This makes you family," Clara corrected. "Real family. The kind that builds futures together." Nolan stood up and started pacing. "Mom, this is too much. We can't accept." "Yes, you can. Because it's not charity." Clara's voice softened. "It's investment. I'm investing in the 2 people who showed me what success actually looks like." She gathered the documents and placed them in Keisha's hands. "I spent 40 years building wealth, but never building relationships. You 2 build a marriage, a community, a life worth living. That's the real fortune." Keisha looked down at the papers that represented more money than she'd ever imagined having. "What do we do with all this?" "Whatever makes you happy," Clara said simply. "Keep teaching and programming if that fulfills you. Travel the world if that excites you. Build community centers if that's your passion. The money is just a tool. Money is a tool for happiness, or happiness as a tool for money. Which matters more? Let me know below. ***. There's one condition," Clara added with a slight smile. "Here it comes," Nolan thought. "The catch. Sunday dinners. Every week. All of us together. Because families need regular time to stay connected." Keisha started laughing through her tears. "You want to buy your way into weekly family dinners? I want to earn my way into them. The money just makes sure we have time to build what really matters." Hit that subscribe button if you believe money should serve relationships, not replace them. ***. The phone call that came 3 months later changed everything they thought they knew about family, money, and the power of investigation. Clara was reviewing construction plans for the Atlanta Community Center when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer. "Mrs. Whitmore? This is Detective Sarah Chun with Seattle Police Department. We need to discuss your recent financial transactions." Clara's blood went cold. "What kind of discussion?" "The kind that happens in person. Can you fly back to Seattle this week?" "Have you ever gotten a phone call that made your stomach drop? Tell me about it below. ***. 2 days later, Clara sat in a sterile police conference room across from Detective Chun and FBI Agent Rodriguez. The words "financial fraud investigation" hung in the air like smoke. "We've been tracking unusual activity in tech sector acquisitions," Detective Chun explained. "Your company's sale triggered some flags." "My sale was completely legal," Clara said, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "We're not investigating you, Mrs. Whitmore. We're investigating the buyers." Agent Rodriguez slid a photograph across the table. "Do you recognize this man?" Clara stared at the photo of Marcus Webb, the venture capitalist who'd purchased Whitmore Tech Solutions. "He's the buyer. We met twice during negotiations." "Marcus Webb doesn't exist," Agent Rodriguez said flatly. "The real Marcus Webb died in a car accident 3 years ago. Someone stole his identity to purchase companies with laundered money." The room spun slightly. "What does that mean for my sale?" "It means," Detective Chun said gently, that your $95 million came from criminal enterprises, drug money, human services, international fraud schemes. Clara felt like she might vomit. I have to give it back. Eventually, yes. But right now, we need your help catching the people behind this operation. What would you do if you discovered your fortune came from criminal activity? Tough choice. Share below. Asterisk, asterisk. The next phone call was the hardest Clara had ever made. Keisha? It's Clara. I need you and Nolan to sit down. What's wrong? You sound terrible. The money. All of it. It's not really mine anymore. Silence on the other end. The FBI is seizing everything. The sale, the trust fund, the building ownership, the community center funding. All of it's connected to criminal money laundering. More silence. Are you in trouble? Keisha's voice was barely audible. I don't think so. But we are about to lose everything I just gave you. Clara, Keisha said softly. Are you okay? The question broke something in Clara's chest. After losing nearly $100 million, after having her generous gifts ripped away, after facing potential legal complications, her daughter-in-law's first concern was for her well-being. I don't know how to tell you both that your wedding gifts are disappearing. Wedding gifts don't make a marriage, Keisha said firmly. Family does. Are you coming home? Home. Clara realized Keisha meant Atlanta, not Seattle. Yes, I'm coming home. Hit that like button if you think love matters more than money. This family's about to prove it. Asterisk, asterisk. When the dust settled and the money disappeared, what remained was worth more than any fortune could buy. 6 months later, Clara sat in Nolan and Keisha's apartment. The same apartment they were renting again after the building ownership was seized. The FBI investigation had taken everything. The company's sale money, the trust fund, the community center funding, even Clara's personal savings that had been mixed with the criminal proceeds. So we're all officially broke, Nolan said, reviewing the final legal documents. Not broke, Keisha corrected, stirring soup on the stove. Reset. Clara looked around the small apartment that had become her refuge during the investigation. Her designer clothes had been replaced with thrift store finds. Her Seattle penthouse was under federal seizure. But for the first time in decades, she felt wealthy. Have you ever lost everything material but gained something more valuable? Tell me about it below. Asterisk, asterisk. I got a job offer, she announced. Teaching business classes at the community college. Mom, you don't have to work, Nolan said. Keisha and I can support you. I want to work. I want to earn my way again, build something real this time. Keisha placed bowls of soup in front of them. Simple, homemade, perfect. What about the community center dream? We'll start smaller. Local programs, volunteer work, grassroots organizing. The way most people change communities, with time and care instead of money. They ate dinner together, talking about their days, sharing stories, laughing at Nolan's terrible jokes. Outside, Atlanta hummed with evening activity. Inside, a family that had been broken by wealth was being healed by its absence. What's your family's most treasured tradition? Share below. Asterisk, asterisk. You know what's funny? Clara said as they cleared dishes. I thought I was testing Keisha's character at the wedding. Turns out, losing everything was the real test of all our characters. How do you think we did? Keisha asked. Clara looked at her son, content in his simple life, and her daughter-in-law, still dreaming of helping others despite having no money to do it with. I think we're the richest family I know. Outside their window, the Atlanta skyline glittered with lights powered by money and ambition. But inside their small apartment, 3 people had discovered something money couldn't buy. They found each other. Subscribe if you believe the best treasures can't be purchased, only earned through love.